One of the more difficult tools to grind is a bowl gouge with the swept back sides. This tool needs to be presented to the wheel, and you need to make a small rolling motion while you're making a sweeping motion. So it actually looks like that. This is very difficult to do by hand. So we developed the Vari-Grind Attachment to help sharpen this particular gouge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to take a gouge the way it comes out of the box and turn it into a swept back gouge. The first thing you have to do is establish the angle on the nose of the tool. This angle should be somewhere between 35 to 40 degrees. It should be stubbier rather than longer. So the first thing I do is to draw a line on my platform with that angle, so I have a reference when I'm going to grind this. And I'll just rough shape the end of the tool. Now I don't want to take a lot of material off of this because the tool will work fine with a very short bevel on the nose, and if I grind a lot off, I'm just taking away my gouge and it's just costing me money for no reason. The next thing I'm going to do with this tool is to grind it back somewhere between 1/2 inch to 5/8 of an inch. In order to make it easier for me to see what I'm doing with the Vari-Grind jig, I'm just going to do that by just taking the tool and pressing it straight into the wheel and grinding back these corners till I get the material ground away. So now I've got, if you look from the side of the tool, I've got the same shape and I've got the bevel angle on the nose. All I have to do now is put the tool in the Vari-Grind, set the leg, set the stick out, and basically connect this and grind the sides until it's sharp. So what I'll do is I will set the top of the leg so it is 5 notches down from the tool. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tighten that down. And I'm going to set the stick out so that it's about 1 3/4 inches. The amount that the tool sticks out isn't critical. It just, for repeatability, you should stick it out the same amount every time. So what I have here is a block of wood with a hole drilled in it. And that hole is drilled to the 1 3/4 inches. So I just drop the tool in, and that sets my stick out so it's the same every time. Now all I'm going to do, I'm going to switch over and work on the coarser wheel so we can do this a little quicker. I'm going to match the bevel on the nose of the tool and then just grind. That's pretty close there. I'm going to start doing the sides of the tool because that's where the bulk of the material is going to come off. The nose of the tool is actually already done. The tool will get quite warm while you're doing this. It's not a bad idea to have some water by the grinder so you can dip it and keep it cool. And you can see I'm just removing the material here, creeping up on the shape. As soon as I see the 2 flat spots on the top edge of the tool disappear, I know the tool is going to be sharp and ready to use. And there's one half of the gouge ready to go. I'm just going to grind the other side. It's very important to watch the shape that's developing. The jig doesn't control the shape that you're grinding on the tool. You're in charge of that. What the jig will do is it'll control the relationship between this bevel and the nose bevel, and it'll make sure that you get one constant bevel. You want to make sure you're holding the jig so that you keep the tool pulled into the pocket. So I set one hand down at the bottom, and I use the other hand to control the sweeping. You want to be very careful when you're grinding the nose. It's got a very small amount of material in contact with the wheel, so it'll grind away quite quickly and make your tool short. And that's not what you really want. You want to keep that as long as possible, so you want to be very careful at the nose. I just let the weight of the tool do the side, and I'll actually support a bit of the weight away from the tip of the tool when I'm doing it. And that's basically a tool ground from scratch into a side ground gouge. Now if you have been grinding your tools and you want to reproduce the grind on them that you've been doing by hand with the Vari-Grind, that's relatively easy to do. You put your tool in the jig, you set your stick out, and again that doesn't matter as long as from now on it's going to be consistent. And I set the leg somewhere. Usually I'll put it in about the middle. Then all I'm going to do is I'm going to set the tool on the wheel, slide this in and out to match that angle. When I have that angle found, I'm going to clamp this down and I'm going to bring the nose around. Well, the nose probably won't line up, so then I'll adjust that to set the nose angle. That'll set the side angle out a little bit. So I'll go back to the side. I'll make a small motion here. Usually it's not a very big adjustment you have to make. And then I'll go back to the nose and then adjust that again. Usually in 2 repeats you can get the tool so that it's very close to the way you were grinding it. Okay, now that the grinder's stopped, I'll set the angle on the side. I'll set the angle on the nose. This one was pretty close, just lucky. So that's pretty good. I'll touch the I gotta come in just a little bit. Now I'm ready to sharpen. That's good. Whenever I set this tool on the wheel, I always set the side of the tool on the wheel first, never the tip, because you can drop the tip onto the wheel and take a lot of material off there quickly. The side of the tool is a lot more resistant to grinding because there's a lot more surface area there, so it's always on side to center. Keep an eye on the shape that you're getting. Then I'll switch hands. This tool is pretty good because we've removed the handle from it, but if you have a long handled tool, it'll actually really get in the way of your body. So I do one side, then I switch. And do the other side. And that's basically all there is to doing one of these gouges. Again, the trick is make sure that you watch the shape that's developing. Some gouges are a lot easier to grind than others. A gouge that has a V-shaped flute is much easier to sharpen than it has a tool that has a U-shaped flute. So you might want to start out, if you have to think about doing one or two different gouges, maybe you should start out with one of the V-shaped flute first. The other tool that you can do with this jig is a fingernail grind on a shallow fluted spindle gouge. This tool should have an angle of about 50 degrees. So this time the bevel is going to be longer rather than stubbier. And the leg is going to get set in the up position. I'll set the top of the leg so that it's even with the top notch on the jig. I use the same block for setting the stick out. So it goes in there. That way my stick out's going to be the same every time. And I'm going to just set the bevel on the wheel, and I'm just going to grind this tool. And there's that tool done. When it comes time to regrind the tool, if you don't move the jig, you don't move the leg, you set the tool back into the block, you'll come up with the same grind very quickly. Again, it's important to keep an eye on the shape that you're getting. A lot of people will tell me that when they grind these tools they get too pointy. And I always say to them, well, if the tool's too pointy, just grind the tip away. So I'll just set the tool on the wheel. And that'll give you a more rounded tip. And that basically covers the use of the Vari-Grind jig.